Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
To Cobbs Corner, your one-stop shop for all things TV, film, and pop culture. I'm your host, Morgan Cobbs, and in today's episode, we are going to be doing a tier list. We're going to be ranking all of the Sony Marvel universe, well, all of Sony's Marvel movies. So this is going all the way back to 2002 up to and including 2023. All the movies that are leading up to Madam Web, which is now in theaters today, Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2024. Go see the movie in theaters, guys. On the Marvel front, it looks like in the MCU, we're only getting one movie. For the first time since 2012, we are only getting a single film from Marvel. And I mean, the last time we got one movie from Marvel was The Avengers in 2012. And then before that was Iron Man 2 in 2010. So this has only happened two other times before. So Deadpool 3 is the only MCU movie that we're getting this year. And stay tuned for my tier list ranking of all of the Fox Marvel properties. So that's also coming soon, probably closer to July, closer to when Deadpool 3 comes out. But this year, it looks like it could be the turnaround year for Sony. Sony has had a shaky start to their cinematic universe. You know, Sony, I mean, they had Venom, which I liked. It was a fun movie. Venom, Let There Be Carnage, which was not as good. Morbius, which was just awful. As it looked like a movie that was still in like post-production, that wasn't done. So they've had a shaky start. We were supposed to get Kraven the Hunter last year. That's been pushed back to August 30th this year. And then still to come this fall, we've got Venom 3, which comes out November 8th. So Sony rather, and the Sony Pictures Universe of Marvel characters, Spunk or Sony Marvel Universe. 3 movies. They've got 3 movies this year, and the MCU is only putting out 1. So this year could be the turnaround year for Sony. They could finally get it together and, turn the tide in their cinematic universe. Who knows? Nevertheless, today we will be ranking all of the Sony Marvel Universe movies. So let's take a walk down memory lane and turn the clock and be like Thanos. Get the time stone, turn the clock back to 2002 with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. I'm going to put that at A tier. Spider-Man, Sony's first movie. I think it's a movie that I won't say redefined the genre of superhero movies. I would say maybe Spider-Man 2. I would say Spider-Man 2, and then for the DC fans, Batman Begins. Spider-Man 2 in 2004, which is our next movie, and then Batman Begins in 2005. Those are the movies that kind of redefined the superhero genre for the 21st century. Spider-Man, I like how the movie was serious. It was a serious movie. And, Tobey Maguire is a phenomenal actor in all that he's done, from Spider-Man to The Great Gatsby to other things that he's done. He's a very, very talented actor in his own right. And I was very excited to see him come back in Spider-Man No Way Home. But, I mean, this is the movie that started it all. I put it at A tier. It's not S tier level. I mean, sure, it's nostalgic. Sure, I remember watching this movie on VHS growing up, but I mean, it's good. It's good. I won't say it was great. It's not on the level of like Avengers or like Avengers Infinity War. Definitely not. Not by a long shot. But solid movie. So solid A tier film. Got to get the origin story out of the way. Got to lay that solid framework. So, and I'm now realizing that I picked, I actually picked the wrong icon. Um, but yeah, Spider-Man A tier. I'm putting Spider-Man 2 as S tier. Spider-Man 2 is an S tier film. Spider-Man 2 turns 20 years old this year. Spider-Man 2 came out in 2004. I was 3. I saw this movie in theaters. I remember seeing it in theaters. I've seen it a ton of times since seeing it in theaters way back when. But this movie, I think, like I said previously, redefined the superhero genre. And we get almost like a moral question. Like I remember in my philosophy class in college, we had actually sat and sort of like analyzed, as I'm fixing the microphone, we had sort of like analyzed Peter Parker and how he lost his powers and how he believed that he could just throw in the towel and that he didn't have to be Spider-Man anymore. And he's no longer living this double life, but then he's forced back into the fold. And so, yeah, I think that him losing his powers, I mean, sure, in Spider-Man Homecoming, we do see Iron Man take away Peter's suit, but I do think that, Spider-Man 2, it just hits home better, if that makes sense. But I mean, I give the movie a 10 out of 10 any day. It's definitely the best of the Sam Raimi trilogy. Yeah, Spider-Man 2 was the best of the Sam Raimi trilogy. Alfred Molina was such a presence as Doc Ock. Doc Ock, again, a sympathetic villain. Marvel's best villains. Now, Marvel has a tendency to, we've seen this in the MCU. We've seen both examples in the MCU. Some villains like Ironmonger, like the Yellow Jacket. It's like you have those like kind of cookie cutter villains who pretty much do everything that the hero does except they're evil for some reason. And we get some of those villains, but man, Marvel has its fair share of villains with justified motives, the sympathetic villains, the Zemos, the Killmongers, the Thanoses, maybe Gore the God Butcher, Ivan Vanko. Like, sure, they're the villain. They got their villainous ways, but they come with those valid facts. So we definitely got that from Dr. Otto Octavius, Doc Ock. So yeah, I mean, also the whole sci-fi aspect of it. So yeah, I mean, it's a great movie. It's a great movie. I still will watch and rewatch this movie for until the end of time. So yeah. Spider-Man 2, S tier. It's slightly better than the first one. It's one of those sequels that I consider to be actually better than the first one, which is rare. All right. And it's definitely rare for like a third movie to ever be better than 1 or 2. I mean, Spider-Man 3, C tier. It's a C tier. C tier film. All right. There's no way that I will ever put it above a C tier film. Now, this film, there's some good scenes. I think as I've rewatched all these movies in preparation for this video, Spider-Man 3, the opening act was solid. It had a solid beginning, a solid opening act, but it all fell apart in the middle when they tried to retcon like Sandman, Flint Marko. He was the one who killed Uncle Ben, and then kind of making him that sympathetic villain, but then also trying to have this like B subplot with Harry Osborn, and then Topher Grace. Topher Grace is definitely, we need to start a hashtag, not my Eddie Brock and not my Venom. I don't know. I mean, Topher Grace, that just was not his role. Sam Raimi's even said how he didn't even want to put Venom in the movie, but Sony Pictures forced him to. Like Marvel Entertainment, they forced him to put Venom in the movie because they were setting up a Spider-Man 4 that just never happened. They were going to do a Venom spinoff that never happened. So like there's a ton of like sequels, Spider-Man sequels that never happened. I think Lights Camera Rant, big shout out to Lights Camera Rant. And he did an episode on his podcast, a number of I want to say maybe like 2021 or 2022. I think it was 2022. He did an episode on Lights Camera Rant where he talked about all the canceled Spider-Man sequels and spinoffs that have happened over the years. But Spider-Man 3, that's where all the canceled sequels and spinoffs started, and they spent too much time trying to set up potential, sequels and not enough time focusing on the story at hand. That said, I do think it's one of those movies that, like, you kind of, if you're flipping through the channels at night and it's on, then you just kind of leave it on and just kind of leave it on in the background. Yeah, it's one of those movies. It's one of those like leave on in the background movies for me. Hence why I put it as C tier, not as D tier. All right. We're probably gonna have at least one movie on each of these tiers by the end of this video. All right. 2012. Amazing Spider-Man. Okay. I'm gonna be nice. We're gonna be nice for once. All right. We're going to give the Amazing Spider-Man C tier. Now, I think that Andrew Garfield is a great actor in his own right. I do think he was too old. I feel like he was too old to play Peter Parker. The fact that he was like 29, pushing 30 when the movie came out. So he was probably like maybe 28 or 29 during production. I feel like he was too old. He was too much of a heartthrob. And as an actor, he did his best with the material that he had. All right. Garfield himself was not really the problem with the movie. I think he did his thing. He showed up. He did his best with the material that he was given. That said, I mean, the director, Mark Webb, they ended up giving him the wrong motivation. It's like his motivation is revenge. And then the scene where Uncle Ben dies is just forced. So I think the pacing is a bit all over the place. And maybe it has to do with the fact that Sony had to make this movie. This movie had to come out in 2012, folks. Going to get a little bit into like the history of Sony and their agreement that they maintain with Marvel to this day. I'm not sure the exact year, but at some point in like either the late 90s or early 2000s, Sony signed a contract with Marvel where in exchange for the rights to Spider-Man and to all of his, his rogues gallery of villains and everybody, in exchange for the rights to Spider-Man, Sony has to release at least one live action Spider-Man movie every 5 years. So 2002, we got Spider-Man. 2 years later, 2004, Spider-Man 2. 3 years after that, 2007, Spider-Man 3. And then, as I had mentioned previously, when we had discussed Spider-Man 3, all those canceled sequels, all those canceled spin-offs and potential, sequels that ended up just on the cutting room floor at Sony Pictures. It was then announced that they'd be rebooting Spider-Man. I think it was announced maybe like 2010, I think. And those of you who I guess are maybe older than me, I guess maybe, those of you, I don't know, maybe like 30s, 40s, anybody who was actually online back then. I mean, I wasn't, 2010, I was still in elementary school. I wasn't on social media, but I've heard that, and also those of you who watch Community will know that Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, there was a social media campaign for him to play Spider-Man. There was a whole campaign for Donald Glover to play Spider-Man, which, it just didn't work out. They ended up going with Andrew Garfield, and in 2012, we got The Amazing Spider-Man. For me, it's a C-tier film. It's like, okay, we kind of needed this movie to happen in order for Sony to maintain the rights, because at that point, it had been 5 years since Spider-Man 3, so this is kind of what we got. It's a C-tier movie. I've only watched it like twice. Like start to finish, I've watched it twice. Yeah. So, and then the next one, we're not gonna spend too much time on this one, but whew, Amazing Spider-Man 2. That is a D tier movie. Yikes. My favorite part of the movie was Jamie Foxx. Jamie Foxx as Electro. I think Jamie Foxx just brings his own like energy and charisma to every role that he's in, whether if it's Ray Charles or the Guardian from Annie, which also came out in 2014, or Electro. Every role that Jamie Foxx has done, he doesn't get enough credit for being one of the most naturally talented individuals on the planet. He is probably one of the best Marvel villains, in my opinion. Feel free to agree with me, disagree with me in the comments down below. Have at it. But I think the story and the way that they brought in Dane DeHaan as Harry Osborn. Dane DeHaan ruined the movie for me. I mean, Dane DeHaan is hashtag not my Harry Osborn and hashtag not my Green Goblin. I don't know what they were trying to do with that, and they were trying to set up the Sinister Six. Like the whole post-credit scene is like a bunch of cameos and like, oh god, this yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 2. And it's sad because they announced Amazing Spider-Man 3 and then Amazing Spider-Man 3 gets canceled. Gwen Stacy dying, that's like the rage quit moment for us Spider-Man fans. Gwen Stacy just dying too early or something. So yeah. Apparently the plan was to kill off Gwen Stacy and then bring her back in Amazing Spider-Man 3 as Spider-Gwen and have a live-action Spider-Verse. So that actually could have worked. Because Spider-Gwen, that comic was also written 10 years ago. It was also written that same year, 2014. It's crazy that Amazing Spider-Man 2 turns 10. And that 2014 was 10 years ago. I mean, wow. Time flies. So then after Amazing Spider-Man 3 gets canceled, then I think in 2015, it was announced that Spider-Man would be rebooted and that he would be brought into the MCU. And although I do not have Captain America Civil War on this list because that was a Marvel movie, it was not done by Sony Pictures. So that was our MCU introduction to Spider-Man during the airport battle in Captain America Civil War. Be sure to check out my review of Captain America Civil War if you have not done so already. Spider-Man Homecoming, finally a movie on this list that I've actually reviewed on the podcast. So Spider-Man Homecoming. I realize we don't have any B tier film. I'll put it as A tier. Tom Holland, the thing I liked about, I guess, Tobey Maguire and also Tom Holland is they have that youthful glow to them. Yes, Tobey Maguire was 27 when the first Spider-Man movie came out, but he had that youthful aura to him. He could play somebody 11 years younger than him in real life. Tom Holland, I think he was maybe like 18 or 19 when Spider-Man Homecoming came out. So he was already around. He was still a teenager. He was already around like that age. So he could play somebody like, he could play a 15-year-old, somebody like, 3-4 years younger than him. He had that youthful energy to him. I do think that Tom Holland was the best Peter Parker. I won't say he's the best Spider-Man, best Peter Parker, most comic book accurate Peter Parker. He took the best of both worlds. He got the best parts of Andrew Garfield and the best parts of Tobey Maguire. They came together in the form of Tom Holland, Peter Parker, Tom Holland, Spider-Man. All right. Michael Keaton. I mean, we got Batman. We got like the OG, like live action okay, not the OG live action Batman, but we got Batman. We got, Michael Keaton as the Vulture. I think this movie did well what Batman Begins was able to do as well. Like, because Batman Begins is like, sure, Ra's al Ghul is the main villain, but then we also are introduced to some minor villains like Joe Chill and Scarecrow and Carbide Falcone. So we get some minor villains as well. But Spider-Man Homecoming, Yes, Vulture is the main villain. Vulture's the main villain in the movie, main antagonist, but then we're also introduced to the Tinkerer and two Shockers. The post-credit scene that hasn't really gone anywhere, we see Matt Gargan, the Scorpion, and we also see Donald Glover as Aaron Davis, aka the Prowler. The Prowler, who was a mercenary and like anti-hero who occasionally teamed up with Spider-Man, I think, in the comics. For those of you who remember, I think back in 2007, there was a video game for like PS2, PS3, Spider-Man Friend or Foe. I remember playing that game when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I was maybe 7 years old, and I remember playing that game. The first level, the first sidekick you get in the game is the Prowler. So that was actually the first time I heard of Prowler. So, and it's also confirmed that Miles Morales exists within the MCU. I was really hoping that we were going to see him in Spider-Man No Way Home, but nope, they didn't go that route. Homecoming's a nice coming of age tale, solid cast, solid story. I like that they skipped the origin story. They said, all right, look, this whole origin story of, Peter Parker being bitten on the hand in the Sam Raimi trilogy. And then in the Andrew Garfield movies, he was bitten on the neck. And it's like, okay, how many, do we really need to do the whole origin story again? It's like, come on. So skipping the origin story and instead making it like a nice coming of age tale about knowing your place and being willing to sort of stay in your lane and continue to improve and work on yourself and not be so fixated on what's to come, and just, patience. It was a nice coming of age tale. So I like that. That's why, again, I put it as an A-tier film alongside Sam Raimi Spider-Man. All right. 2018 was the year that Sony began to make their own movies. They started their own little corner of the Marvel Cinematic Universe / like separate universe altogether. The Spunk, Sony Pictures Universe of Marvel characters. The first movie in this series is Venom. Venom, I'm gonna put that as like a B tier movie, just because Venom is a great character. We did see him in Spider-Man 3, although I put Venom above Spider-Man 3. I think it was just an entertaining movie. I love the banter between Eddie Brock and Venom, and like there's the scene where they're at the restaurant, and then Brock runs over to the lobsters and he starts eating the lobsters. Like, the banter was great. The story was easy to follow. The pacing's on point. It's a fun movie. I won't say that it was great. All right. It's fun. It's a fun movie. It's like, not every movie has to be either the best or the worst movie ever. There's room for nuance. There's room for overlap. Venom, it's a solid movie. It's a fun movie. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's available to stream on Disney Plus. So yeah, I mean, check out Venom if you haven't already. It's a fun movie. And then the post-credit scene is a teaser for our next film, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, going all the way to the top. S-tier film. Now, before Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, I used to swear by Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse that it was the best Spider-Man movie. All right. Like, as a movie, I even think that it's better than Spider-Man 2. Which I know is going to sound like borderline blasphemous to some of you. So again, feel free to have at it in the comments. But yeah, I mean, Into the Spider-Verse, just the story and the whole seeing Peter Parker as a mentor to Miles Morales, who's in another Miles Morales, who's in an alternate universe where the Spider-Man in that universe died, and then the whole like collider. So, I mean, the different characters we get: SPDR, Spider Ham, Spider-Man Noir, Spider Gwen, Peter Parker from the 616 universe. Overall, I mean, the movie, I just have no complaints. Like, it's just such a wholesome movie, a solid origin story. Sure, it's like for all the other Spider people, they all have their Uncle Ben, their, uncle who died. And then for Miles Morales, he loses his Uncle Aaron after he finds out that his Uncle Aaron was, in fact, the Prowler. So yeah, I mean, it's just a solid, solid movie, and it's just 10 out of 10. And I know that it won the Oscar for best animated feature at the Oscars in 2019. It won best animated feature, and I think it's deserving of best animated feature. Solid cast, a solid story. You got to get that origin story out of the way. That's the framework for you to build from. So, solid framework, S tier film. One of the best movies on this list, for sure. Yeah. So now, going back to the MCU, we have Spider-Man Far From Home. I'm putting that also as an S tier film. Spider-Man Far From Home, this was the closer. This was the closer for the Infinity Saga. This was the end of phase 3 of the MCU. And we're introduced to Mysterio. Mysterio, played by, Jake Gyllenhaal. He did his thing. Actually, I'm gonna rethink my position. A tier. Yep. I'm gonna put it as A tier just because good movie. Good movie. I saw it in theaters. I can't remember if I saw it opening weekend or not, but Spider-Man Far From Home, it's like, all right, now that Tony Stark has died and Peter Parker, he's essentially got big shoes to fill. And I liked how, with kind of the home trilogy, we could call it, Homecoming, Far From Home, and No Way Home, the Spider-Man home trilogy, I think we see the essential theme return of identity. Identity is like the main theme from movie to movie. Who is Spider-Man? Who is Peter Parker? And we see Peter Parker sort of wrestle with this idea of identity of like, am I supposed to be just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? Am I supposed to just be helping out the little guy? Am I really cut out for these Avengers level threats, these like Earth level threats, guys like, Quentin Beck, Mysterio, and sure, I mean, Mysterio, he's another villain. Now, he's clearly the villain, but even he's got his justifiable motives. If you remember from Captain America Civil War, the binary augmented retro framing, or BARF, that Tony Stark had. You have the binary augmented retro framing, and apparently that was Quentin Beck's life's work, and then Tony fired him, and so there's that whole mess. But there's that whole dynamic. Gyllenhaal did his thing. Kobe Smulders reprising her role as Maria Hill. Samuel L. Jackson, of course, such a presence, just a constant presence in the MCU. Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury. He is Nick Fury. All right. And then, of course, the cliffhanger ending where they reveal Spider-Man's identity. And so yeah. But I put it as A tier because I just feel like it's not as impactful. Like, for me, it just wasn't as impactful as like Into the Spider-Verse or Spider-Man 2. Like, it's just not on that level. Yeah. For me. So Venom, Let There Be Carnage. C tier. I'm gonna put that as a C tier, not D tier, not a D tier film. I saw it in theaters. I saw it the opening weekend, and I don't know. I think with this movie, they may be underused. They maybe underused Woody Harrelson. Like I like what they did with the post credit scene of Venom as a teaser for Cletus Cassidy, aka Carnage, in Venom Let There Be Carnage. So we have a new character who we've never seen on the big screen before, and we get more of the banter between Eddie Brock and Venom. But I don't know. This movie it just didn't do it for me. Just didn't do it for me. I think the first one is better than the second one. I think Let There Be Carnage, from the story to the pacing. I know I say that with like every movie, but yeah, I mean this movie like had a story that was kind of half done, and then at the end of the movie we get, now we didn't fully understand it because Spider-Man No Way Home, which is our next movie, hadn't come out yet. But that post-credit scene where they cross over into the MCU and it's like he's the villain, and I'm like, okay, all right, what is happening to the Sony Marvel universe? It's like you're two films in and you're already trying to only two films in and you're already trying to like connect to the MCU, and it's like why are we doing this? Why are, you know, it's like tighten up, Sony, you know, get your own Marvel Cinematic, your own superhero universe kind of set in stone first before you just try to cross over into the multiverse. And so, yeah. I mean, Marvel's just now in the multiverse saga, they had a whole saga, 3 phases, the Infinity Saga, without a single mention of the multiverse. Okay, except Spider-Man Far From Home, if you count that. But you know, Venom Let There Be Carnage, another Sony movie that has been, I think, unfortunately negatively affected by them wanting to set up future sequels and set up potential future storylines that we don't even know if they're going to go anywhere. So Let There Be Carnage, it's a C tier movie for me. C tier. So, I get that it came out around Halloween and October and was supposed to be kind of like a spooky movie and everything, but you know. Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm going to put that one right alongside Far From Home. No Way Home picks up right where Far From Home left off. We have a bit of a nostalgia fest. You know, we get Andrew Garfield comes back. We get Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man. We get Alfred Molina as Doc Ock. Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, Norman Osborn. Forget the actor's name, came back as Flint Marko. We get Lizard. Jamie Foxx as Electro comes back. Thank God they did not bring back Dane DeHaan as Dane DeHaan as the Green Goblin. Thank God they did not bring that back. Whew. Thank you, Jesus. Because again, the only D tier movie so far on this list. So, and we're nearing the end. No Way Home, solid movie. Phase 4, you know, 2021 was the first year that Marvel did 4 movies. If you remember, they did Black Widow, which was supposed to come out in 2020, in addition to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, The Eternals, and Spider-Man No Way Home. So Spider-Man No Way Home, we got right at the end of 2021, heading into 2022, you know, December. Third movie in the Home trilogy. Cliffhanger ending. But even more of a cliffhanger than Spider-Man Far From Home, because it's like now I don't know where they're going. I don't know where they're gonna go with this. Like I'm still Like I needed to process the ending of that movie. I'm like, huh? Did that just happen? You sure? Really? All right. Like to see you come back from this one. Shoot. It's the most cliffhanger ending. I mean, sure, the post-credit scene of Spider-Man Homecoming hasn't gone anywhere because we haven't seen Matt Gargan, the Scorpion, yet in the MCU. So, no idea where they're going with that. Spider-Man Far From Home, that post-credit scene, okay, so now the world knows Spider-Man's identity. Spider-Man No Way Home, nobody knows that Peter Parker exists. Wow. That's just... Also, very tragic passing of Aunt May. I lied. It's an S tier film. It's an S tier film for me, guys. For the first time since the post-credit scene of Captain America: The First Avenger, we get the post-credit scene, or I think the mid-credit scene of either the mid-credit or end-credit scene of Spider-Man No Way Home. I can't remember which one it was. It was literally a trailer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which was directed by Sam Raimi. So for the first time since Captain America: The First Avenger, which we saw in 2011, the post-credit scene of that movie was a abridged trailer for the Avengers. But Captain America: The First Avenger is still a self-contained film, whereas Spider-Man No Way Home does include Doctor Strange and at least maybe like indirectly affected the plot of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. There is that one line mention of like wiping everybody's memory clean, and so yeah. S tier film. It's, in my opinion, the best movie of Phase 4 of the MCU. It is the best one because Phase 4 was kind of mid. Not gonna lie. So I mean, Spider-Man No Way Home, S tier. That said, it is not better than Spider-Man 2. It's not better than Spider-Man 2 because, you see, if not for Spider-Man 2, if not for the Sam Raimi trilogy, we wouldn't have gotten Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home wouldn't have been as good without the wouldn't have been as good without the Sam Raimi trilogy, without all the old actors coming back and reprising their roles, and us having a bit of nostalgia and, you know, cheers in the theater. And so, yeah, that's all because of, again, Spider-Man 2. Still an S tier film. Still S tier. I'll tell you what's not S tier. Whew. Morbius. Morbius Living Vampire. Again, Sony, what are you doing with this Sony Pictures universe? I mean, Morbius, it was trash. It was trash, guys. I'm sorry. I mean, please try and convince me otherwise. I welcome the, conversation in the comments below. If any of you, those of you who saw Morbius, I saw it in theaters. I did not like it. I want my money back. I was like, what did I just watch? Like, I don't know what movie I just watched. How could you waste a perfectly good cast? How did you waste Matt Smith, okay, and Jared Leto? Matt Smith, the 11th Doctor, for my Doctor Who fans. Big shout out to my Doctor Who fans. Matt Smith, he was amazing as Prince Philip on seasons 1 and 2 of The Crown. He was great in that. Although I'm not familiar with Game of Thrones, I know he was on House of Dragon as well. So big shout out to the Game of Thrones fans and to my Doctor Who fans. Matt Smith, he's a very accomplished actor in his own right, as is Jared Leto. And, Jared Leto, who the only other movie I know him from is, I know he was in Fight Club as well. So check out my Fight Club review if you haven't already. I know he did Fight Club and he did another D tier film, Suicide Squad. So yeah. Pretty sure I've said how Suicide Squad's not a real movie. It's also D tier. But yeah, Morbius, it's like, okay. Sony Marvel Universe. Are you guys leading up to Spider-Man? If so, how and when? Like, what's the plan? I just want to know, what is the plan? 2024. This could be your year, Sony. I have faith. I want to see this cinematic universe go forward. But what's the plan? We just want to know. The Cobbs Corner family wants to know. Lastly, Across the Spider-Verse. I mean, where else am I going to put this movie? Of course, it is alongside Into the Spider-Verse. Now, when I first saw Across the Spider-Verse in theaters, I had to kind of sit and like ask myself, because I love Across the Spider-Verse. And I'm so excited for Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse whenever it's coming out. I don't think there's an official release date for that, but Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to be great. I had to ask myself, was Across the Spider-Verse better than Into the Spider-Verse? I really had to ask myself, which movie is better? And after rewatching both movies, I have decided that Across the Spider-Verse is better than Into the Spider-Verse. You heard it here first. Across the Spider-Verse is better than Into the Spider-Verse. Just like how Spider-Man 2 is better than Spider-Man. Right? It's one of those. It's like every few years, only like a couple times per decade, I guess you could say. There's only like a handful, like every 10 years, there's only like a handful of movies, handful of sequels that are actually better than the original film. So Across the Spider-Verse is one of those rare gems. Like it's rare for it's rare for a direct sequel, like a second movie, to be better than the first. It's even more rare for like a third, for like a film, either 3+, third or fourth movie to be better than the first one. That's even more rare, I would say. But Across the Spider-Verse, I'm so glad I saw it in theaters. So glad I got to experience it in theaters. And I just had a blast. I experienced Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse in theaters. And it's just a wild ride. Like, it's just a fun movie. Yes, it's rated PG. Like, yes, it's like technically for kids, but like, I mean, this movie is just like the story, a nice like sort of like coming of age tale, the themes of coming of age, of identity. Dare I say it handles those themes better than the Home trilogy. Like, dare I say that Miles Morales Spider-Man deals with identity and standing up for what is right and fighting for, what you believe in, as well as, themes of coming of age, because, Miles, he's a teenager, and then, here he is, I think, a senior in high school. So he's probably like 17 years old in Across the Spider-Verse, and he's about to go off to college and sort of, taking that leap of faith that they talked about in the first movie. Like, it really just doubles down on the themes and further fleshes out the themes that were introduced Into the Spider-Verse, and just goes to like another plane of existence with those themes, just takes them to another level. So that's why I think Across the Spider-Verse is a better film than Into the Spider-Verse. Into the Spider-Verse, which is, again, still an S tier movie. I still put it as S tier, but I just wouldn't put it above its successor. So, well, folks, I mean, that about wraps up my rankings for the Sony Marvel universe. Sony Marvel movies, 2002 to 2023. Tier list. I'm going to put a link to this in the description below. I would love for you guys to send me all of your respective tier lists. All you got to do is, again, hit me up on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, or Facebook. All those links are in the description below. You could also email me at cobbscornerpodcast@gmail.com, all lowercase. And, again, click that bell so you get notified when I upload. Tune in to Talk Time with Morgan Cobbs. Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. Chuk Standard Time, live right here on YouTube, and then available everywhere else the next day. Hope you guys enjoyed your stay here at Cobbs Corner. Again, we are your one-stop shop for all things TV, film, and pop culture. As always, I'll talk to all of you in the next video. Peace.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.